Well, just this morning, the U.S. Supreme Court sided with refineries in the biofuel waiver dispute. The ruling was 6-3 and overturns a lower court decision that blamed the Environmental Protection Agency for granting waivers to companies whose prior exemptions had expired. Those companies were HollyFrontier and CVR Energy, operating in Wyoming, Utah, and Oklahoma. South Dakota Congressman Dusty Johnson joined us this morning and says the issue was the interpretation of the word extend.
It really turns on the legal definition of extension. And so I would call it a technical ruling. Again, it is a disappointment. It is bad news for biofuels. I don't want to beat around the bush. But I do think we've got an opportunity to put this ball back in Congress's court. We need to fix this problem. If there are definitions that aren't clear, that the court has undue ability to interpret, then let's make it clear.
And as we mentioned, this decision has tanked much of the energy markets today. Of course, Marlon Bowling, he'll have another update for us on the latest in just a few minutes. Well, President and CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association, Geoff Cooper, joins us now with further perspective on the court's decision. And Geoff, thanks for your time this morning. I'm sure it's been a busy day. What was your immediate reaction to this latest update?
Well, good afternoon, Janet, and thanks for having me. We were, of course, extremely disappointed by this decision. We've been locked in this fight for more than a year and a half, and certainly not the result we were expecting or hoping for today. But I do think it's important to put all of this in context, and I did hear Congressman Johnson's comments and agree with much of what he had to say. Today's decision from the Supreme Court really just means refiners can apply for an exemption anytime they want to. It does not mean, however, that EPA has to grant that exemption just because the refiner asks for one. And so we really don't expect that this decision is going to reopen the floodgates on small refinery exemptions like we saw under the Trump administration. We're confident the Biden administration and the new leadership at EPA are going to be, far more restrained and more responsible in how they administer this refinery exemption program. And we've already seen positive signs out of this administration that they plan to really restrain and wind down the number of exemptions that are granted. So, yes, today's decision is a setback, but the sky is not falling.
And Geoff, what implications could this have for the industry?
Well, it really depends on what EPA does with this decision now. We are anxiously awaiting the EPA's proposals for 2021 and 2022 RFS blending volumes. We know the agency has sort of been waiting on this decision before releasing those proposals. So we expect to see those any day. And again, the indications that we're getting from EPA were, hey, regardless of which direction this decision goes, EPA is going to be more committed to enforcing and implementing the RFS in the way Congress intended. And again, just because the court said a refiner can apply for an exemption anytime doesn't mean that EPA has to grant that. Those refiners still have to demonstrate that they experienced some kind of disproportionate economic hardship because of the RFS. And we think that's going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for those refineries to show.
Geoff, bring us up to date, if you would. How many small refinery exemption petitions still are sitting with the EPA?
Yeah, there are 70 petitions that are still pending and have been sort of sitting on the corner of the administrator's desk at EPA for a very long time, even predating this administration and this EPA administrator. So, again, we know they were waiting on this decision to really decide what to do with those petitions. We would expect the agency will make some decisions on those pending petitions in the months ahead. And we'll have more clarity on what direction this administration plans to go with this program.
So, Geoff, in the meantime, where do we go from here, or do we wait and see what the EPA does?
Yeah, the ball is really in EPA's court now, and again, we're going to be anxiously awaiting and watching for those RVO proposals and expect to see those any day, and that'll give us the best indication of what direction EPA is headed. We'll have an opportunity to provide comment and input on those proposals, and then we'll expect final rules this fall that will, finally set in stone the volume requirements for this year and next year, and then hopefully the market can get back to the business of responding to those volume requirements and getting more renewable fuels into the marketplace.
Okay, Geoff, thank you. You can go online to ethanolrfa.org for additional information. Again, talking with President and CEO of the Renewable Fuels Association, Geoff Cooper, connecting with us today out of St. Louis, Missouri. Thank you, Geoff.